This week, conflict zone is in the West Bank city of Ramallah. My guest here in Strasbourg, France, the Republika Srpska.
Conflict zone is in Athens.
The German city of Leipzig.
Skopje, the capital of Macedonia.
Conflict zone is in Brussels.
Vienna.
Menzingen, Switzerland.
In Warsaw.
Conflict zone is in Berlin, and so is my guest. On June the 23rd, Britons go to the polls to vote on whether to remain in the European Union or to leave it, one of the most momentous decisions the country has faced in the last 40 years. Do you buy into the idea that the EU is some kind of rotting corpse that we need to get away from in Britain, that British people need to get away from?
Well, you've used the phrase rotting corpse. I wouldn't use it that. I would say it's a concept...
I think it came from one of your erstwhile MEPs.
Well, maybe, but you direct the question at me.
Sure.
I'm responded by saying I wouldn't describe the EU as a rotting corpse, personally. I would describe it as an organisation that's run out of steam compared to its original concept, one that does need radical reform, which it's not able to invest in and make the necessary changes to make it accountable, make it value for money, and make it stand up on the global platform. On that basis, for me, it's a failure, yes.
We've been in the EU for 43 years and it's done us pretty well. We've seen growth, we've seen stability, we've seen security, we've seen peace. You need to give a little bit to get something back. I see sovereignty like a boomerang. You throw it out there, you pull a little bit and more comes back to you and you end up actually being stronger through the partnerships, through the pooling of sovereignty. Yes, that means compromise, sometimes that means negotiation, but we're adults, we should be living in an adult world and working with this in a way which is ensuring that we make a patriotic case for the EU.
So you want more Europe?
Well, I want more Europe, because this is the only answer.
You can't handle what you've got at the moment.
We have to proceed in adopting a common defence, a common foreign affairs policy in order to make Europe a global stakeholder. Right now we just defend what we have achieved, but we must not stop here.
But
and all these
states
challenges
are telling you
Mr.
they
Sebastian,
don't want common policies. North against south,
yes,
east against west. They don't want the same things.
These challenges, I'm talking about refugees crisis, the economic crisis, immigration crisis, are catalysts for more Europe, not to backtrack.
You said that Europe is the project of the century, but sadly it often seems more like Greece is Europe's project of the century. Economically and socially, Greece is a potentially failed state and a huge worry for Europe's futures.
Well, I would strongly disagree with that kind of statement because what we see now is a repetition of problems like our country has faced in other countries as well.
But other countries are not facing it so long time as you are doing.
No, they are not, because they have not been faced with such a severe fiscal consolidation program.
But perhaps this severe consolidation is a mistake of yourself and not of the world.
Wait a minute, wait. I mean, we have never denied that there were internal problems in the Greek state, the Greek economy, and the Greek society. Never. But these problems were matched with a totally wrong approach that resulted in such a severe recession.
25% of your economy is a shadow economy. An estimated 17 to 18 billion euros escape state coffers every year. Is your tax collection office in a permanent vacation?
Well, that is another extreme expression that does not reflect reality.
25%? I don't know any country in Europe which is giving you money which has a 25% loss of a shadow economy.
Well, there might be estimations. These have to be proved, and this is not the case.
The European Policy Centre pointed out last month the vast majority of EU countries are either critical or openly opposed to Turkey's EU membership. And even the current Turkish government president don't seem really convinced their country should join the Union. Are they right?
Well, nobody believes it will happen. As I said before, it's all about interest. Nobody's going to ask to have Turkey because of our beaches. No, if it happens, that means the EU needs us, which is a totally different thing than what has happened to some other countries. They are being brought back into the family, the Poles, the Czechs, the Slovaks. For us, we were always seen as an outsider, because for us, we always thought that we were part of the West after the 20s, 30s, 40s, especially after the Cold War, during the Cold War. But since then, after the Cold War ended, we were said, okay, you've done your job, now you can stay out.
Turkey policy of Merkel is maybe one of the biggest defeats of her chancellery. In 2005, when she took over power from us, she stopped EU negotiations with Turkey in a time when Turkey was moving towards reform in the right direction. She rediscovered Turkey at a time when she needed Turkey because of the refugee crisis.
But here's what
That's
you
a big
said.
mistake.
Here's what you said. You said we should help Turkey, but not at the cost of letting Turkey escalate the conflict in the southeast and drifting further
That's
into
a good quote. It could be my
authoritarian rule.
quote.
This is your quote. Yes.
It's a good quote.
It's a quote, but it's meaningless, isn't it? How do you propose to stop Turkey drifting into an authoritarian state? Or to stop its operations in the southeast of the country?
Merkel's mistake was she never invested time into Turkey. She never thought that there is a strategic need, not only of us, of the whole entire European Union, to have Turkey close towards us and not close towards East or close towards anywhere. She didn't pay attention to Turkey, and now it's Erdogan who reminds her to her old quotes, and of course is unfortunately misusing the refugee crisis.
Only one question. You still want to join the European Union?
Definitely.
A report for the European Commission last year said the situation in Macedonia has been backsliding. Achievements of the last decades, reforms are being undermined by real and potential political interference in the work of the judiciary. The chances of joining the EU are decreasing.
This country has been candidate country since 2005 and has a recommendation to start accession negotiations since 2009. That means we are in the 7th year since the European Commission has recommended that we should start, and European Parliament has supported. We've been blocked in the Council because member states did not agree with this recommendation from the Commission. And now ask the question, for how long can you hold a country like Macedonia, so much dependent on the European future and its neighborhood, in a limbo where it has no predictability whatsoever on starting accession negotiations on an unjustifiable basis, and then keep this?
No, but there are deep reasons. To become a EU member, one must accept freedom of press and freedom of speech.
Are you interested in our ideas?
Yes, I am, and I'm going to come on, but
obviously not, because you all you do is presenting me quotes from people who obviously do not like the party. Instead, you should ask me questions about how you want to change European politics, shouldn't you?
You can answer questions.
Oh yes, I do all the time. But this is not getting us anywhere.
I'm going to ask the questions that I'd like to
ask. Yeah, you can do, but
because that's what a free press does.
Oh yes,
unless you want to give me a script and invite me to read it. Okay? We're still dealing with free speech issues.
I think that there is a freedom of press here.
Your new public order law is causing a lot of concern. You criminalize posting text, symbols, images or cartoons that are obscene or offensive, content that is embarrassing or insulting.
But obviously that's the area which needs working on. Definitely yes, But speaking about legislation...
You're going to change that law, are you? Are you going to change that law?
Legislation passed at Republika Srpska, I'm speaking about...
Are you going to change that law?
Whatever actually proves to be bad or wrong.
Are you going to change that law, Prime Minister? Simple question.
That's not a Bible, any law can be changed.
Simple question, are you going to change that law?
If there is a lot of reasons, actually a lot of reasons to change that, but the practice
Prison
should show.
sentences of up to 30 days for disturbing social order, for insulting someone. Are you so sensitive, you politicians, that you can't be criticized or insulted?
Any law can be changed if there is a lot of enough evidence, actually, that it requires,
Do you want to change
like
this?
that.
The Palestinian Center for Development and Media Freedoms reported last year 38 press freedom violations by Palestinian forces in the West Bank in the first half of 2014.
This is not our policy. I have to make sure.
But it happens, doesn't it?
It happens as everywhere, actually, and usually we investigate.
But it doesn't happen everywhere. We're talking about what happens here.
Usually we investigate any incident, actually, that happens, actually, and we can bring anyone to trial, actually, if really he commits mistakes.
In the West Bank, 37 arrests and 24 summonses were based on Facebook protests, comments, even so-called people putting a like onto the Facebook page. And these were perceived to be critical of the PA, so there were 37 arrests and 24 summonses. Why?
I can tell you actually, and this is a fact, we are proud of the democracy we practice in Palestine. People can say anything, can criticize me, can criticize the president.
So Freedom House is wrong, all your critics are wrong.
Look at the newspapers, look at the websites actually. I wish you could just go through certain Palestinian websites and see what the people are writing and what they're saying. We never can try anyone for what he says or what he speaks.
You're even taking issue with a German satirical singer, comedian, Jan Böhmermann, where you want to have a case against him for allegedly insulting the president. No sense of humor left in Ankara?
Well, I've seen that, you know, to be a comedian, you need intelligence. And that kind of comedian, which brought on this kind of interesting issue, is bereft of any intellect himself, because what I've seen is bordering on racism. It's disgusting, and even the Chancellor herself has agreed to turn it to the German courts.
She has, but she says she'll repeal the law that is being invoked here. But Martin Schulz, the president of the European Parliament, has been pretty scathing about your president and his legal action. He said it's not acceptable for the president of another country to demand Germany limit democratic rights just because he felt caricatured. We have democracy and that's the end of it. Politicians have to live with satire.
You have to make a distinction between satire, caricature and insulting. This is insulting. I mean, if you have seen this video, it goes beyond any kind of freedom of speech.
You're a member of the OSCE,
yes, sure.
Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. I mean, they continue to condemn your actions in Ukraine. Last summer, the Parliamentary Assembly talked of your unilateral and unjustified assault on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. My point, Mr. Ambassador, is that people aren't buying your version, are they? They're just simply not buying it.
That's
96 votes in favor of a resolution against you, 7 against. 96 votes.
That's probably the result of an information war launched against Russia, and which is continuing to this day.
You don't fight in information wars either?
We have to respond, yes. We do. We are engaged in that, which is a new element, of course, in this 21st century of ours.
The OSCE was created in 1975 with the aim of reducing Cold War tensions. But many say the Cold War is back into full swing. How dismayed are you to hear that?
I would say that now we are not in a Cold War environment.
I'm sorry, you by yourself said that you are back in a Cold War dynamics.
Yes, because the dialogue on some of the issues that we have on the agenda reminds us of the tones of the Cold War, and sometimes the difficulty also in making decisions on in some areas reflects the difficulties that we had at the time. On the other end, there is a part of the agenda of the organization where there is a strong engagement and where there is a strong basis for consensus.
Your forces were there. Everybody knows your forces were there. Why for 2 years did we have this deception that your forces weren't in eastern Ukraine? I mean, NATO even put out satellite pictures. Look, there's a satellite picture. 21st of August, commercial satellite picture.
It's a commercial satellite picture.
Yes, showing your forces within the sovereign territory of Ukraine.
That doesn't prove that these self-propelled artillery pieces belong to the Russian army.
No, but they were in a position where the Ukrainian army wasn't. So there is high probability that they belong to your forces.
Or they could belong to the forces of the self-proclaimed Donetsk or Lugansk Republic.
We have issued several arrest warrants, and some of them have been executed.
Some
of them have been executed.
But some of the most important haven't. President al-Bashir of Sudan, for instance.
I do not think any one warrant is more important than another, because they are charged with atrocity crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Their positions or their official capacity does not matter.
Numbers of attacks tell a different story, don't they? They tell a story
numbers don't
of a security situation that is steadily worsening in your country.
No, as I said, the numbers
Egypt's
indicate...
a war zone, isn't it?
No, hardly. I think if you were to come to Egypt, if you were to ask the normal Egyptian, he is now much more secure, much more confident of the ability of the government to provide this security.
What is going to unblock the stalemate that we have at the moment and lead to peace? What can you do? I know you put the onus on the Israelis, but what can you, the Palestinians, do to advance a peace process?
You know, if you look in the past how difficult compromises we made through the Oslo Accords, and we are still committed to reach really a historical political settlement with Israel, based on the UN resolutions and based on the two-state vision.
A two-state vision that is losing popularity among your citizens? Your Prime Minister warned last year that Lebanon risked becoming a failing state. Even the most basic services now don't get provided to your people. How did you let it get so bad?
I wouldn't call Lebanon a failed state when he was able to cope with 50% of his population as refugees, 200 Syrian displaced to Lebanon per square kilometer.
I warn that he said last October, I warn we are moving towards collapse if matters continue.
Yeah, but when solid states and successful states like in Europe were not able to receive more than 10,000 refugees, and Lebanon got adapted with 1.5 million, I wouldn't, we have a very successful model that if it fails, our model of diversity and coexistence, then everything will fail and collapse.
Minister, it's not successful when you can't even cope with the rubbish on the streets. You can't even clear the rubbish. You can't blame the refugees for that, can you?
No, but this is our responsibility. I cannot deny it, but still...
This is a system that has become, the activists say, so inefficient and corrupt that it can't provide basic services.
Yeah, it depends how you measure the success of a society.
You gave a very bleak assessment of your position. You said, it's impossible to run the country, to be honest with you, to sustain the military, to sustain jobs, to sustain the economy. Sounded like a Prime Minister giving up. Are you giving up?
No, I just try to explain the challenges so the world can stand with us.
Pretty bleak challenges.
Well, they were. I mean, when our income from oil drops to 15% to what they were 2 years ago, and we have war at our hand, that war is not with the local terrorist organization, but with the international terrorist organization. And we have liberated, I mean, that organization was controlling 40% of the Iraqi land when I took over. Now they're only controlling 16% of that land. It means we have liberated many of these areas. I think we have succeeded in the challenge.
Destruction of property, abduction of people,
I mean, that's
extrajudicial killing.
Well,
these are facts of life which have been reported by the human rights groups, and you know this is going on.
But not to the extent you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're bringing your information from. No, look, you're taking excerpts from certain things out of their context. You're taking excerpts by me out of their context. This is not acceptable. I don't accept this. This is very hostile. Iraq is fighting a war against terrorism. We're trying our best to fight them. We're trying the best to fight outlaws in our country. Is not black and white. I cannot just turn the country upside down in one day. There are a lot of problems in this country, a lot of countries intervening in my country. There has been a lot of support to terrorism, to militias in my country. We're trying to fix it. I cannot carry responsibility for everything wrong. We're trying to rectify it. I'm not responsible for criminals. I catch them when I have evidence. I cannot catch people like this. I cannot execute people in the streets. I mean, I need justice in the country, and I need evidence. We are doing our best to do it. Yes, there are criminal activities. There are people working against us. There are people trying to weaken the country, but we are performing. Iraq, look, 1.5 years ago, the country was at the brink of division, a brink of the whole total collapse. We are in a much better position now than that time.
In December 2012, you made a speech which said that Jews were among those who over centuries had been enemies of the church. Why did you say that?
I said it, I think this phrase has made a lot of controversy for
As
nothing.
you knew it would?
For nothing.
As you knew it would?
No, because it was absolutely not my intention. No, my intention was just to present that the Jews would like, or would look at the church as an enemy. It was not the presentation on the other side. Maybe I was not expressing myself correctly.
But you never thought fit to apologize for all the outrage and the concern that this caused?
No, we made a correction. We said first it was wrong to pretend that I was aiming at every Jews or the Jewish people. That's wrong. I've never meant that.
And then you blamed the press?
No.
You blamed the press for picking it up?
Well, it's possible. At least one reporter who said that I would have said the Jewish people, and I've never said the Jewish people.
Rome slapped you down as well. The Vatican spokesman said it's impossible to speak of the Jews as enemies of the church.
This way,
that's Federico Lombardi.
Yeah, sure. And let's say that was never my intention. Never.
The health of your nation is in danger because millions of people from all sorts of countries are streaming towards us. This was Björn Höcke, your party leader in Thuringia. Is that really the case? You're really so endangered? You're really so fragile? You're so under threat?
You see, that's not the words I use, but I think if we think that being a liberal country, being a democratic country, means that we can live without borders, then we won't be
I wasn't talking about living without borders.
No, yeah, but deciding about who's migrating and who's not, who's going to be part of a new country, is in the end a question of borders, whether you see them or whether you don't. When I go to France, I don't see the border, but I know it's there and accept it, be it in terms of speeding limits or be it in terms of laws and legislation.
We're not talking about speeding limits. We're talking about repressing one culture in order to strengthen the other, aren't we?
No, we don't. Unless you tell me that we repress anyone.
Well, you don't want minarets and you don't want people wearing burqas.
Oh, that's interesting. If we have laws in Germany and want that these German laws are being stick to, do we repress someone? Is that what you're telling me?
Not being able to have a minaret, not being able to dress the way you want, isn't that repression?
So you think
that's normal?
You think that burqas and veils should be worn in public everywhere in Germany?
Why shouldn't they be? Tell me why.
Why shouldn't they?
Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they?
Well, I think they don't have to.
Don't have to, but you ban them.
The leader of your party, Kaczynski, said, there are already signs of the emergence of diseases that are highly dangerous and have not been seen in Europe for a long time. Diseases?
There are, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, well,
there are any epidemics in Europe since refugees are coming in?
But there are problems, of course. There are a number of problems. Our position is quite open, frank, and transparent. We may accept refugees if they qualify to be refugees, if they provide identity documents and they are not threatening our security. And this relocation is on a voluntary basis.
I understood. Mr. Kaczynski went on. Cholera on the Greek islands. Dysentery in Vienna. There is also talk about other, even more severe diseases. Here again, diseases.
Apparently there are.
Just very briefly. We are half a billion people in the European Union. If we unite in fight against root causes, if we make, for instance, something like a Marshall Plan for Northern Africa, we can make a difference. That's what I want.
It's not happening, is it? You say these things.
Well, nothing is happening if you don't do anything.
Try telling that to Poland.
Somebody has to start.
To Hungary, to Slovakia, to Sweden, to Denmark, to Austria. The only winners out of all this have been the far-right parties. We've just seen the Austrian Freedom Party storming to a huge win in the first round of the presidential election.
That's a very good example.
They're the winners from all this policy of yours.
I think exactly the opposite. I mean, look what the Austrian governments from Christian Democrats and Social Democrats were saying. They were not joining Merkel's policy. They were criticizing Merkel and our policy and saying we need national border controls, we need a limit to the number of refugees coming to our countries. And as you quoted, and what was the result of the presidential election? Was it a defeat of the right wing? It was the opposite. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you try to copy the slogans of the right wing, you make them stronger. Our way is more successful.
It's the same story in almost every interview. You're taking out bits and pieces, not even confirmed ones, and trying to draw a picture from that.
You feel hard. You feel hard done by.
Oh,
Do
no,
you,
that's okay.
Petro?
I'm used to that. But I mean, it's not going to help to draw a neutral and representative picture of my party in public. So if that's what your aim is, then fair enough. Well done.
You've given a very good account of what your party is.
Oh no.
Thank you very much for being on Conflict Zone. Thank you, Petro.